Damn it! No! Ah! What the? Dude, today sucks. This has been the worst day ever. Can't catch shad, can't catch catfish. They got rid of the nachos, and my bang's warm. Welcome back to the Peeling Drag podcast. I am Josh Dolan.
I'm Grant Alvis, episode 2.
I am full of spaghetti. I can barely breathe right now, but as you can tell, if you listen to episode 1, I have fixed my audio, I think. As I'm learning, trying to work out the bugs with podcasting and all that.
It's going to keep getting better every time.
I hope
until we get all the bugs worked out.
Yeah, I've learned how to catch fish. I've learned how to film stuff, and now I'm becoming an audio technician. So, needless to say, it's a little bit of a hands-full situation. But
baby steps.
Yeah. Hope you all are enjoying your day, your evening, wherever you're listening to us from. Thank you for tuning in to episode 2. We're going to go ahead and jump right into it with some fishing news. I have a few things I can sort of lead us off here with. An angler caught the new state record catch and release smallmouth bass for Idaho. As you know, Idaho is a favorite of mine. I got my buddy Steve out there in Caldwell, Idaho. This fish weighed 9.1 pounds.
That's big.
That's a big one.
It's like the exact same size as our state record.
Yeah, close.
No, ours is 8.1.
Yeah, 9.1's
9.1's huge.
This is 23 3/4 inch smallmouth bass caught at Dworshak Reservoir, which I've heard Steve mention that one. I think it has some large yellow perch in it too. This was caught December 13th, 2022 by angler Joey Walton. So that's pretty cool. That's big smallie.
That's big.
There's not a lot of smallmouth bass that size.
You also don't hear about smallmouth in Idaho.
Yeah, Idaho's one of those weird.
You don't hear a lot of anything in Idaho other than trout.
Well, sturgeon.
Snake
yeah.
Sturgeon, but.
Idaho, I'm not going to say it's a weird state. It's a sleeper state. You don't expect...
Oh, yeah, Idahoans are weird.
Yeah, Idaho's weird. There's nothing but potatoes out there. No, but there's big fish in Idaho, man. I mean, their yellow perch get really big. Smallmouth get big, crappie. I saw some carp on an underwater camera that looked pretty sizable.
I mean, it's got to be pretty substantial to grow a smallmouth 9 pounds. That's not just a random fish.
Pretty huge. So... They got a lot of deep water lakes. Everything's pretty cold water there.
Is that area where you catch those sturgeon have smallmouth in it?
Yeah. I have footage on my computer right now of smallmouth swimming by the underwater camera. Right.
Did y'all ever catch any where you were trout fishing?
We never tried. We might have.
I feel like one would strike a Joe fly or something.
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't think we did, but it's one of those deals where there's so many trout around, you really don't. You might run into the odd smallmouth here and there. But my second bit of angling news is the North Dakota state record burbot actually just got beat. Previous record was 18 pounds, 4 ounces, 41 inches long. And the new record, which should be approved around the 1st of February, was 19 pounds, 5 ounces. So it's a pretty solid burbot caught by angler.
Tackle on burbot. I know those.
All tackle? Oh, I don't. It's massive.
I know those two guys up in.
Yeah, the Fishing Geeks, the twins, Conrad brothers.
One of them has it.
Yeah, one's got the burbot. The other one has the rainbow trout. Yeah, the triploid rainbow out of Lake Diefenbaker. But angler Shane Johnson of Minot, Minot. So I don't know if it's Minot. But caught it January 4th, 2023 while fishing the Garrison Dam tail race. So burbot's one of those cool species, man. It looks a lot
the all tackle is 25.2. So
yeah. Grant pulled up a picture of one of
the is huge.
Conrad brothers with their burbot. Yeah, that's a
and
mess.
It was caught during the day. Like, that's rare for burbot too, isn't it?
Yeah, I've watched videos of them fishing for them, and they mentioned like daytime burbot fishing's pretty rare. I don't know.
Even through the ice, you see them catching them at like dusk and dawn, or like at night.
Yeah, they're definitely like a nocturnal fish. They remind you a lot of like flatheads and stuff. You can catch
literally
them,
like an eel.
Yeah, you can catch them during the day, but nighttime is the right time for those things. But burbot look a lot like kind of an eel / bowfin / snakehead kind of mix. But
they don't really have any sort of like bone structure to them though. Like when you see people catch them and stuff, they move like an eel.
Yeah. I know what you're trying to say. Yeah, for sure. They're definitely an interesting fish that I'm hopefully one day will go try to catch for myself. But congrats to those anglers. I think you have a couple yourself, don't you?
I got one. Pretty serious one though. This occurred on, I had the date right here. I think it was January 12th, 2023. So today is January 12th. This was posted January 12th. Sorry. It was caught last week. Okay. 560-pound swordfish caught in North Carolina by a 13-year-old.
That's some heavy lifting for that kid, for sure.
Probably weighed. 13-year-olds I weighed 100 pounds. So it probably weighed.
Well, depends on who you
on
are.
The 13-year-old.
I weighed 100 pounds in 5th grade.
True, but it probably. Looking at this kid, it probably weighed 6 to 7 times what he weighs.
Yeah.
It's actually a charter captain's son. The charter captain, Michael Tickle, runs a 67-foot Jarrett Bay named Waste Knot out of Morehead City. That's actually where we do a lot of albie fishing in the fall. But this day, I think his boat is, this time of year is kind of their off season. So I think he had his boat in for maintenance, it says. So they took one of his friend's 28-foot Southports, which is one of those super center consoles, triple motors and all that good stuff. Just 3 guys on the boat, him, his friend, and his 13-year-old son. And they went 60 miles east of Beaufort Inlet. So 60 miles offshore.
In a 28-footer.
In a 28-foot boat.
That's ballsy.
Fishing 1,600 feet of water. Used a 20-inch eel bait rigged on 11-aught Mustad with a pink fathom skirt. It's like one of those offshore skirt rigs with a long bait.
Right.
A Tiagra spooled with 80-pound braid, 150 yards of 250-pound wind on leader, and took them 5.5 hours to land the fish.
Every time I hear like numbers like that getting thrown out, I can't even fathom it. I can't fathom
fighting a fish for that long.
I've never.
It's like that shark I fought in Myrtle.
Yeah.
Myrtle Beach. Garden City.
Yeah.
Because that would be illegal.
Yeah.
I fought that fish for 3.5 hours on 20-pound. Drum rod.
You didn't purposely hook it.
No, but still.
You hooked it on a surf rod fishing for a drum.
With 20-pound mono leader.
Right.
And an hour and a half of that fight, the fish was 60 yards off the beach right there.
Yeah, I don't.
But still, that amount of fight, I could understand it more in 1,600 feet of water, though.
It's a completely different ball game. But I don't know if I fought a fish longer than 30 minutes. I haven't caught a swordfish of that size, and I haven't fished in 1,600 feet of water. But
crazy thing is, like, look at Jake Jordan and like those billfish he's catching on fly. Catching those on 20-pound leader, and he's getting like 200-pound blue marlin to the side of the boat on fly in like 17, 20 minutes.
Yeah. And then
like
the other side of the coin, we have this Lords of the Fly book right here. It's a big favorite of mine. A lot of the guys fishing for those IGFA line class tarpon, they're fighting them for like 8 hours. Yeah. And then breaking some of them off.
The 6-pound record, they fought for like 12 hours through the night. They hooked it at like dusk. And
is that the one they fought like way offshore? Or something?
They hooked it in like on a flat, and they landed it like 5 miles offshore.
Yeah, I can't.
In a flats boat.
I simply haven't experienced that. I don't know. My fishing isn't conducive to fighting anything for that long. So
this was caught during the day too.
Really?
Yeah, it was a daytime swordfish. It says fish took a few hundred yards of line on the bite. First off, there's 1,600 feet of water, and the fish eats and runs 200 yards.
Yeah.
Said never saw the fish initially, but after about an hour, we were able to get the weight off the line to make the fight easier. as I was getting the weight off, the fish jumped. That's another thing about swordfish. People don't realize these fish live on the bottom. And then at nighttime they'll swim, and they catch swordfish a lot at night on balloons with baits 2 feet below the surface.
Yeah, I've seen stuff like
they'll
that
swim
before.
up and down 1,600 feet in a day.
Yeah.
And then they say when you hook them, regardless of what time it is, swordfish jump like crazy.
Yeah.
And they say especially if you have a big moon, the old salty tale about swordfish, they try to spear the moon. They jump and going towards the light. But the other crazy thing is most guys that are deep dropping for swordfish are using electric reels. This is a 13-year-old kid. He caught this on a hand crank.
Dude's jacked.
He's probably still asleep.
Or incredibly worn out afterwards. Yeah. That's
They got it to
impressive.
the surface within an hour to unclip the weight to make it easier to fight, and then another 4.5 hours to get it onto the boat.
That's nuts, man. I just simply, I don't know if I've ever went offshore fishing. Nothing comes to mind, but I could not even imagine fighting a fish for that long, let alone as a 13-year-old. So that's
165-inch total length, 106-inch girth.
Can you release those things like when you fight them for that long?
I think swords you can. Well, maybe not when you fight them for 5 hours.
Yeah, there's got to be some like delayed mortality with
swords are tricky too because you're bringing them up so fast and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some articles about them where they take, when they decide it's time to come up to feed, it might take them 5 hours to swim up. They swim so slowly.
That's wild.
But I don't know. It'd probably be weird with swords how deep they are.
Yeah.
Because I know those marlin, all the ones Jake catches, granted they're catching them quick, but they release all those fish.
Yeah, I know at least sailfish you can release almost all of them.
I know those big grander marlin, they're all dead when you land them.
Yeah, well, they throw their guts up.
Well, they fight till their heart explodes, typically.
You see photos of them, it's like this giant pink thing hanging out of their mouth. I'm like, what? Is that the bait? No, it's literally their stomach.
The other thing that happens with those marlin a lot, especially when they get up to the northern half of the Atlantic, around the Azores, the Gulf Stream is so thin, they'll hook them in the Gulf Stream, and then the fish will run out of the Gulf Stream, and there'll be a 30 to 40 degree water temperature change at 100 yards, and they'll just die.
That's crazy.
Stun themselves immediately.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about it a bunch of times. They get spatially disoriented, so they're swimming to the ground at full speed.
Swim 20 miles an hour right into the mud.
Yeah, and then get stuck.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. We talked about it last episode. Fishing has so many different genres. It's just cool to hear stories like that. And I don't know, maybe one day I'll get out there, but there's a lot of money invested in offshore fishing. It's a lot of money that I don't have.
Boats that are over $1 million and thousands of dollars in fuel every trip.
Yeah, it's a whole different ball game. There's a reason why Michael Jordan is in the offshore fishing scene.
Catch 23.
Yeah,
that's his boat name.
Yeah. But anyway, moving on. Congrats to those anglers. Super impressive. I don't know. I know I'm gonna look forward to that particular segment every time, just because there's so many big fish.
Yeah, we'll never run out of stuff for fishing news.
Yeah, I mean, big fish get caught every week, and we love throwing the spotlight on those guys because every one of them is a huge accomplishment. So
and the variety too. You go from, we just talked about
swordfish, bourbon, smallmouth
and
bass.
smallmouth.
Yeah, and it's nuts. But anyway, we'll move on to what's new in fishing tackle, and this week, Yakattack, who we are affiliated with.
Not really a tackle, but more of a gear thing.
Yeah, tackle gear, whatever you want to call it. But they just unveiled their new kayak cart.
Yeah, the tow and stow bar cart.
Yes,
the name of it.
It's pretty cool. We'll give you some sort of dimensions on that guy. I'll just read down the list here. The rough MSRP at this point looks like it's around $250. Should be available March of 2023. The wheels are rubber tread, injection molded, and there's going to be a beach or sand wheel kind of adaptation.
Retrofit kit, sort of. I think eventually the goal is to produce their own sand wheels.
Don't quote us on that.
Don't 100% quote us on that. But just knowing Yakattack and their strive to make everything in America.
Yeah.
I think their initial plan is, at least for this year, to make a retrofit kit to fit the Wheel Ease, or what was the other brand?
I don't know. I don't
There's
know.
another brand cart popular cart that has beach wheels, and I think their plan is to make a pretty simple retrofit kit to put sand wheels on it, because right now the wheels that are planned on it are fairly thin. They're like 2-inch wide, thin plastic wheels.
They resemble like sea tug wheels, if you're familiar with that. I don't know if we've mentioned it in the last podcast or not, but we come from a kayak fishing background, and we've been on the Yakattack team and affiliated with the Yakattack for feels like 5 or 6 years now. We've been friends with them longer than that. So everything's made in Virginia, which means it's made in America. They make really great stuff. This looks like it's going to be a modular kit, so you should be able to buy replacement parts if you need them. Kind of like everything Yakattack, it's going to be sort of Lego-ish, so you can sort of build it out how you want to, it looks like. But
a couple features I like. They got away from a lot of these, it's not a scupper cart where the posts go through the scupper holes of your kayak. It's a bar style. So most of the kayaks nowadays, pretty much all of them. I mean, I know every Hobie is like that. I know the Crescents are like that. I know most of the Jackson hulls are like that, where they're almost pontoon style.
Yeah.
You have 2 wide areas and then more or less 2 tunnels that go through the center. I know all the Bonafides, which is Yakattack's brand or, affiliated brand. So basically the design of the cart, instead of being a scupper cart, it's 2 long bars that you can adjust the width and the length of, so the kayak will sit on the bars and the bars will sit up in that in those tunnels. So that's nice. And instead of other carts on the market having the padded foam or like rubberized foam down the whatever you want to call them, the bunks, this has 2 heavy duty like rubber pads, which is nice.
Yeah, the rubber's
a lot more durable.
Well, that and the rubber will
grip better.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about your cart sliding out.
Yeah, that's kind of the biggest complaint I've seen with kayak carts. Is just how big of a pain in the ass they eventually end up being.
This one has a kickstand too, which is a cool feature because it'll hold the cart flat while you put the kayak on it, and then you kick the kickstand up to go.
Yeah.
The kickstand's not meant to support the kayak or anything. It's meant to strictly hold the cart in position while you're loading the cart. So that's a cool feature. Yep.
And as far as its weight capacity, it should be designated to carry around the weight capacity of a fully loaded.
Oh, hey, here's another thing 14. I didn't notice. The bars can be rigged up long ways or perpendicular.
Yeah. So you can sort of lay your kayak across.
So if you have a really wide kayak, like a Native Titan or even like a Pro Angler 14, you can lay it across the bars, set up perpendicular, or you can have the bars running long ways too. That's cool.
Yeah, it's fairly modular, but so the weight capacity, it looks like it's going to be rated for at least a fully loaded Pro Angler 14, which is the heaviest kayak on the market. Yeah. So it should be able to handle all of your...
In the models they have, it was holding a Pro Angler 14 fully tournament rigged, and this is a 3D printed model, is what they were saying. So the injection molded version is going to be even stronger.
Yeah.
So it's not a problem now. It definitely won't be a problem with the injection molded one.
Yeah, so super cool stuff coming out of Yakattack. We always like getting
That's
to
been
talk
something
about
they've been missing for a while, too. That's one of the staple items in kayak fishing that they didn't have. So.
Well, yeah, that and what is on the market is there's not a super great product out there. I know I have the Sea Tug right now, and I would rather just drag my kayak. Yeah. They can be a little aggravating.
The other feature that I did notice that I like is the mounts. The strap mounts are on the outside of the axle and the outside of the wheel. So instead of a Sea Tug where your straps come from under the boat and then go over the boat, over the wheels.
Yeah.
So after about a year, that tire rubbing against the strap wears the strap out. Your straps are always on the outside of the wheel. Makes it a little easier to hold the kayak in place if you're going long distances. Yeah. If you're just wheeling it 100 yards from the parking lot, you don't even need to strap it.
Right.
But if you're going if you're going a quarter mile through the woods down a trail or something, that's nice to have.
Yeah. And what I can already foresee with this thing is since it does have that higher weight capacity and those bars can be run sort of horizontal as opposed to perpendicular, or no, Yeah, they can be run across the boat as opposed to in line with the boat. It allows you to put something like a smaller John boat on top of it as well.
Yeah.
So like, a flat bottom 12 or 14 foot John boat empty weighs about the same as a PA-14, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're talking, you're not putting all the weight on the cart.
Right.
You're just putting the back half or whatever.
Right. So it super cool to see. Yakattack stays innovating, so it's another awesome product to hit the market by then. I know I've been reading some of the comments on Facebook and stuff so far. Looks like the beach wheels are like a hot button topic for that. So I foresee them.
John was pretty adamant about explaining what they were going to do.
Yeah. So I foresee them attacking that problem and coming up with a solution. Yeah, but awesome new kayak cart from Yakattack to add to their lineup of really great, reliable products. Made in Virginia, made in America, so you can't go wrong there. So our next sort of topic of conversation, made a social media post and sort of opened up the podcast for potential topics or questions. And our buddy John Hastalka, he's Fish Stalka on Instagram. Yeah. He hit me up with a topic which I don't...
You're personally versed in.
Yeah, it'll be pertinent to the conversation. There'll be some good stuff discussed here, but I'm pretty sure he was trying to rib me a little bit. It says topic, how to remove a hook while on the water. So what he means is how to remove a fish hook from your flesh while you're on the water. And he has subpoints here. How to be manly and not cry on camera. And what tools to have on board aftercare, which is interesting way to put that, and prevention. So we'll just kind of go down that little list. How to remove a hook while on the water. So unfortunately for me, I've had, I think, 3 or 4 treble hooks in my hands at this point, and they've all been pretty substantial treble hooks, nothing small, no panfish hooks.
The Skitterwalk one was the best one.
Yep, I've had multiple hooks in and around my palms and thumbs, and there's really there's 3 options. You can either grab it with a pair of pliers and force it back through.
That's the worst option.
Yeah, so essentially you have one hole, you're grabbing it, you're twisting, and you're making a new hole.
I want to use this knife to get out the other knife.
Yeah, basically. It feels very Talladega Nights inspired. But you basically force the point out from the inside, which I've had to do that one this summer, and it does not feel great. Your second option is yanking it back out the way it went in, which also sucks. And your third option is just cutting the hook off, and I assume going to the emergency room and getting...
We call that the catfish barb method.
Yeah, I've had a variety of foreign objects in my hands while on the water. A catfish barb was one of them, probably the worst one due to the risk for infection. You almost exclusively have to go to the hospital to get seen about. That way you don't get like lockjaw and die. So, but I've done every method other than going to the hospital as far as hooks are concerned. So this summer I pushed one back out from the inside. You basically push it out.
Public safety announcement from Josh.
Yeah,
you
don't do any of this. It sucks. No, I pushed the hook point out from the inside. It was in the meat of my left thumb, like the palm area. And then you just clip the hook off past the barb and pull it back out. It's really not that big of a deal, and it really doesn't hurt as much as you think it does.
It's probably the easiest of all the methods. It's just the hardest to get your mind around.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's probably the... I don't know. They all suck. It's just you're then trying to break like the tensile strength of your palm skin, and it's just very nerve-wracking.
Hard to make yourself do it.
Yeah. So that option isn't great, but it is an option. Hopefully, you have a sharp hook. It makes it easier. Like I said, your second option is ripping it back out the way it came, which Harley helped me with one of those.
Can you do the line trick with the loop?
Yeah. You ideally take the hook off the bait. You loop a line around the actual hook,
like the bend of the
shank
hook.
that is in your hand or wherever it is on your body. You push down on the hook to try to get that barb back into the channel in which it came in.
You want to separate the barb from like the meat that it's probably dug back into.
Yeah, so you push down, you put that barb back in sort of the wound channel, and then you just pluck it out, which doesn't feel great. all of them kind of hurt, but it doesn't hurt anywhere near as bad as what you think it is. It's more of a freak out situation. So that then bleeds.
Perfect example is like when I was a kid, I had a nail stuck in my foot.
Yeah.
Went to patient first, or if you're listening to this from other places, they're urgent care, Better Med, whatever.
It's a clinic, basically.
Clinic,
yeah.
Went there, sat in the waiting room for an hour with a nail through my foot.
Mm-hmm.
Not all the way through, but it was in like basically right below my big toe.
Yeah.
And went there, had to get an x-ray and all that, make sure it's not touching anything.
Yeah.
And the doctor comes in, has like a solution of saline and some stuff. And he's like, yeah, so the x-rays kind of showed that it's a little close, and yanked it out while he was talking to me. And I was like, oh my God. And it was like 2.5 seconds. It hurt really bad. And then it's over.
Yeah.
And, they told me don't walk on it the next day, but I had like no pain.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, so it turns out the x-rays were fine. You didn't have anything. We're good.
Yeah. It's always a mental game, because you can't, hopefully you're fishing with somebody when you do this, because then you can get them to do it for you, and you don't physically have to. Your brain just doesn't want to injure yourself.
Yeah.
So like I had to work up a lot of like mental
literally instincts.
Yeah, it's like, hey, don't push this
gonna hurt.
hook through your hand. It's, it is what it is. But Harley plucked one out of my hand in Florida at like 3 a.m. We were tarpon fishing.
Yeah, I was like Pensacola on it.
Yeah, I got a skitter walk in my hand. Luckily, it was a brand new hook. There wasn't really that big of a risk of infection, and I wasn't about to go to the Florida emergency room at 3 a.m. because I can only imagine that's a wild place to be. Yeah. So we plucked it out and went back
Get
fishing.
To meet Florida man.
Yeah.
Multiple Florida men.
Yeah. So, his question, how to be manly and not cry on camera, it's really not that bad. I don't know. It's way bigger freak out. And then as far as like taking care of it afterwards, hit it with a bunch of peroxide, just kind of keep an eye on it.
I have a first aid kit in my kayak or in my boat. So alcohol wipes, alcohol spray, any of that stuff.
Yeah, you're usually pretty good with like fish hooks, unless you're using some old rusty stuff, which you shouldn't be. If you're listening to us
change
right
your
now,
hooks.
Throw away your rusty hooks. But
that crankbait box that you've got 800 crankbaits in? You're like, I'll change these hooks one day. Do it.
Yeah.
Go to Green Top or go to your local tackle shop and buy.
We're good. Keep talking.
Tons of hooks and replace them.
We got a.
It sucks. It sucks to change hooks, but it's a good thing to do in the winter when you're not doing anything else.
Yeah. Okay. Is it recording still? We have some minor technical difficulties, folks.
Like we said, working out the
battery life in the
bugs right now.
Top right corner.
70%.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. Typical GoPro people.
Let's release a new camera every year, but not fix any of the problems.
We're gonna take a brief sidebar, bitch, for a second. Every other camera I own works perfectly fine in every other scenario I have. At the end of our camera here right now, which if you're listening, you can't see it, but if you're watching, you're looking at me right now. This camera right here, GoPro, we're in an air-conditioned room. There's nothing extreme happening right now. It can't handle filming us for more than...
The fact that GoPros are considered an action camera, where if they get over 80 degrees or less than 60 degrees, they just don't work.
Yeah, I don't know. They
got all these videos of these guys going down like Tahoe and going down all these ice mountains and snowboarding when it's like 0 that's bull.
Yeah,
they're using a different camera.
I don't know. It's just I have a particular just thorn in my side with GoPro at this point, because they always die at the most inopportune time.
And every new model has less battery life, so you have to buy some sort of aftermarket battery kit.
Yeah, this GoPro,
which is honestly probably the source of all these problems.
Yeah,
but
this GoPro is plugged in to a direct power source right now. It shouldn't even. It just cut off again as I was talking. I watched it do it. Hit that top button again. It's hot. Okay, so we have a GoPro camera overheating inside of an air-conditioned building. So, is it hot? Okay, well, I don't know. We'll let it run for a minute. You'll probably have to unplug that cord, actually. Yeah, just go ahead and unplug it. That might be
Who
why
knows?
it's getting hot. But yeah, so
we make a new camera every year with 10,000 new features. Look, it's got hyper zoom. It's got active imaging. It's got, oh, look at this anti whatever. Oh, look, we've made the best camera ever. It films in 27K.
Yeah.
And now it's dead in 4 seconds.
Yeah, the battery life is like 10 minutes long. Perfect.
Every year, the battery life gets less and less. The camera quality gets supposedly better and better.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, yeah, by the way, if you want to buy replacement batteries, they're $78 a piece.
Right. So
you need 14 to film yourself putting your boat in.
Well, it's also like a little sidebar here. Every time we go to the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, every single time, like clockwork, we go out to try to film the big bull reds, red drum, whatever you want to call them. We go out to the bridge tunnel to try to fish for these things and film these things. And I have the GoPro set up every time. You're a mile to 3 miles offshore. There's rollers. It's combat fishing most of the time. You can't just...
It's not a place to mess with electronics.
No, you need to hit play and not be able to worry about it the whole day. And I swear, as God is my witness, every time we're out there, it dies like clockwork. And it's either some sort of format...
Either right when we start fishing, while you're fighting a fish, or just whatever's the most inopportune time. Yeah. Oh, it's starting to get rough. Guess what? Camera dies.
Yeah. So I've missed out on so much footage because the GoPro's out, trying to catch these red drum. And another thing too, you have a camera that's prone to overheating, and you make the case black. Like, what kind of sense does that make? It doesn't. So I don't know. Anyway, we'll move on from the GoPro gripe right now. But yeah, this camera we have at the end of the table, it's probably going to be a problem.
I mean, how about we were filming for Snakeheads with David, the freaking GoPro overheated literally 3 seconds before I set the hook on a fish.
Yeah, I mean, that entire... It's amazing. We were filming an episode for Have Rods Will Travel with Grant, David Graham, and myself for Northern Snakehead here in Virginia. Wasn't overly hot. I think it was maybe an 80-degree day. It wasn't anything crazy.
We had like 3 separate situations where the camera died and we caught a fish on the cast that the camera died on.
Yeah. I mean,
like,
I spent...
Cast, camera dies, twitch, goosh.
Yeah, I spent the majority of the second day just messing with GoPros. It's amazing we even got anything on camera.
We did get one really, really good shot.
Oh, yeah.
That big one.
Yeah, thanks to the Canon...
Actual camcorder.
Yeah, the camcorder that was running. GoPros just... Get yourself together. Like, I don't know. I'm tired of like pulling my hair out dealing with these things. So
the thing is, like, it's just so annoying because they keep adding features. They keep making the cameras better.
I just want a camera that works.
The Hero 8 is a totally perfect camera. It's got really good photo quality, films in 4K. Has the what is it? The vibration adjustment where it hyper smooth.
Yeah,
has all that. It's voice activated, which is the best feature they've ever put on it. Just telling the GoPro what to do.
Yeah,
that's awesome. But then it's got a screen on the back, which is great. The 8 was like, as far as I'm concerned, that's the peak of what they've made.
That's what this is right here.
Exactly.
I haven't had any reason to pay $400 for a newer version of it. But
all the new ones, like the features, it's the camera's getting nicer and all. But the worst part is the batteries are getting more expensive, and the camera's dying quicker.
Yeah, just make sure you're talking into the microphone.
Hello, am I talking into the microphone?
You sound 100% better when you're talking directly to the microphone. It gets super echoey. That was the problem in our first episode. I had the camera too far from my face, and it didn't sound as good as what it should have. But yeah, I don't know. GoPro is just, if I honestly felt
I would be fine with it if they just made an external battery system that would work.
Just anything at this point, man. I mean, if there was a camera that was legitimately like equivalent quality wise, because there's guys out there that use
the problem is like the support network with the GoPro, like all the attachments and everything that you could get. Like,
yeah, I mean, I know Garmin makes one. There's
Tacticam,
Insta360 Tacticam. There's stuff out there, but I haven't seen anything that like touches the video quality, which with what we're doing is the utmost importance. But the other side of the coin of that is if the camera it won't run, then it's useless. It's a brick. So yeah, every time we go out to the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, I try to get Grant to like film with me and do all that, and it's like
never works.
Cameras die almost immediately.
We've tried like 8 times.
Yeah, it's just so frustrating. But whatever.
Enough on that rant.
Yeah, needless to say, we're going to be replacing this camera as soon as possible. We're kind of working on a limited budget.
Please like and subscribe, and
yeah. So subscribe to our non-existent Patreon. Just give us money.
We actually have a
send money to that PO box I mentioned in the last episode, and send that in my cowling if you happen to find.
There's actually a Have Roads Will Travel GoFundMe.
Yeah, we don't have any money. Anyway. Just to wrap up the hook situation. Actually, let me tell the story about that catfish bar because it had a lot of good points in there that I think
that's the one Wayne helped you with.
Yeah. So Wayne Bradby, another local angler here in Virginia, was on the water at the same time I was. I caught a very small channel cat. It's probably November-ish. I really can't remember what time of year it was. It could have been summer.
I know it was cold because you said it actually kind of helped that it was cold outside.
Yeah, I think it was like October and raining, something like that. But anyway, I catch a small channel cat, like half a pound. I go to like lob it back in the water. It flips out of my hand and stabs directly into my palm. This is not a hook. This is a live animal. So it
barbed catfish barb
proceeds to just chew up my palm. I'm basically handcuffed. I'm holding a catfish that is attached to my other hand. So I have both my hands locked on this fish and I can't do anything. I finally just squeeze the life out of it. I literally have to crush this catfish with my bare hands because it's in me right now. I had no other option. So I get the thing killed. I cut the like fin off of my, like I separate the fin / barb from the catfish. And then I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? I couldn't come to like pull it out myself. Just couldn't get past that mental block. It was terrible. But I remembered seeing Wayne on the lake that day. It was getting in the evening. I was hoping he was still out there. I called him on Facebook Messenger, which is probably the only time that function has ever been useful. Most of the time, people are like, what the hell are you
Most of the time, you accidentally are calling someone.
Yeah. So Wayne, I'm sure, was surprised to hear from me on there. He answers. Luckily, he's loading up or about to load up at the boat ramp. So I start open hand paddling. This is when I still kayak fished heavily in a paddle kayak. So I paddle open palmed back to the ramp. I explained to Wayne what my situation is, but cool, thanks. Leave your phone on. It's fine. Actually, let me go ahead and mute mine while we're here.
Just sitting here like if he didn't get a text.
I know I'm going to get a call from my family at any minute. But no, yeah. So I know Wayne didn't quite grasp how bad it was because his reaction to what I explained to him over the phone, his reaction when he saw it in real life was completely different. It's like, oh my God. I mean, it looked terrible. I was impaled.
You had probably been bleeding for a while too.
Yeah.
It's like a 30-minute paddle.
Yeah, it was rough. So, I mean, this might as well.
That paddle had to be terrible.
It was super great. It was fine. But we get back to the boat ramp and Wayne's like, okay, I'm going to pour some iodine on this. We're going to take you or you can go to the ER. I'll help you load up and all that stuff. And I'm looking at it and it's straight in. Like, what are they going to do? I'm looking, I'm like, they're not going to cut it out. They're going to
do whatever we're going to do right here.
Fillet up my hand to get this thing out. I'm like, Wayne, they're going to do the same thing that I'm about to ask you to do. Just grab some pliers and yank it out. He's like, are you sure? I'm like, dude, I'm positive.
What else is going to happen?
I'm not going to, like, they're not operating. We live in America, so I'm not going to have a $30,000 healthcare bill because a catfish barb got stuck in my hand. So I worked up Wayne's nerves to the point where he agreed to do it.
Just imagine Wayne like
yeah. I mean,
slapping himself.
It was a pretty like intense.
Does like a smelling salt.
Yeah. It gets hype. But no, Wayne grabs it with the pliers and he starts to count. He's like, all right, 1. I'm like, Wayne, what? Okay, something's up with this camera here. Can you? I don't know. What is it? What did it say? Hit the record button in the back. Bear with us, folks. It's the big silver button on the back of the camera. Just hit it. What does the front say?
Your memory card is full.
Oh, great. We got a full memory card. That's no big deal. All right, fine. Just give us 1 second, folks. Don't mind me. Apparently, I put the wrong memory card in it. Can you go ahead and just swap those out for me? Thank you, Harley, so much. I highly recommend you watch this on YouTube if you just happen to be listening. If you can watch it on YouTube, I don't know. All of our cameras are failing at this point.
It might just be Spotify only right now.
Yeah. Do you know how to do it? Yep, you got it. It sounds like you're doing the right things. Try not to move the camera a ton because it is focused on me how I need it to be. All right, close it back. Is it in there? Hit the same button in the back. Perfect.
We're good.
Actually, hit that button again and turn it off and read how much time is on that card. What does it say on the front? Does it say anything? Perfect. Don't need it to. All right, just hit the play button. See, that's why I asked you to be in here. I need you for technical difficulty. I'm not getting out of this chair. Okay, back to the story. Wayne proceeds to start counting down. I'm like, Wayne, why? Just pull it out. I don't want to know what it's going to happen. So he yanks it out, bleeds a little bit. We squeeze the blood out of it and tried to get the germs out. The good part of the story is coming. I drive an hour and 45 minutes back to Richmond. Went to patient first, which that is becoming a common theme if you're listening to this podcast, because I had a finger that was falling off in our last story that we told
We've
last
mentioned
episode.
patient first 3 times in 2 podcasts.
Yeah, bad things happen. Anyway, I go to patient first. The doctor walks in. I explained to him the situation. He goes, interesting. Catfish in your hand? All right, well, be right back. I got to go Google what I have to give you. I'm like, perfect. A medical professional going to Google. I could have did that. He's like, yeah, I really just don't have a lot of experience with waterborne diseases. Well, I mean, I guess that's the threat with dealing with catfish juice.
Give you an antibiotic.
Yeah, well, yeah. He gave me what looked like a pill that goes in your butt. I mean, that was the size of it. I didn't do that. I thought they tasted funny, but it was fine. I ended up taking them orally, and I don't know, nothing ever happened. But it's just bad things happen if you go to the water enough. Eventually, you're gonna run into situations like that. But that's probably the first time I've ever had a medical professional
Google something.
tell me he was. I mean, just blatantly.
It's not the first time. It's the first time he's ever told you.
Blatantly tell me he's gonna Google, and then comes back and is like, "Yeah, there's a ton of bad things that can happen to you, so I'm just going to give you the strongest thing we have." So, needless to say, I didn't die from that, and life goes on. So, that is my suggestion to you, John. Carry a pair of pliers, carry some iodine, a Band-Aid.
Go to Harbor Freight or Home Depot and buy a cheap pair of bolt cutters, too.
Yeah,
I have a small pair of bolt cutters on my boat and on my kayak. Depending on what size hooks you're using, you're going to probably need them.
Yeah. If it's a heavy enough hook to go in your hand, you need bolt cutters. Bolt cutters.
You can get a pair at Harbor Freight that you don't care about. Throw them in your boat for like $5.
You never need them until you do.
Yeah.
So bolt cutters,
you don't
pliers,
care about them until you do. It is the greatest purchase you ever made.
Yeah. Bolt cutters, pliers.
Also, they're not a bad thing to have if you've got a giant hook and a fish that you can't get out and you don't want to tear the fish up. You can cut the hook and get the bait back.
Hooks are fairly cheap. You know, if you're really dealing with a fish
that's big in like the musky world.
Yeah, for sure. Well, a lot of those guys use bronze hooks because in case they,
have to cut them out.
Yeah. Well, if they get them hung up too, they're using such heavy line. They just
straighten them.
You're not losing your $100 bait. And then if they got to clip them, it's no big deal. But anyway, so we'll continue on into our, I guess, main topic of this episode. We're just kind of thinking of things to talk about. And I suggested that we maybe discuss our... what is the problem?
It's raining.
Oh, it's raining. Okay. Thanks for stopping the podcast.
I just heard it.
I didn't think it was supposed to rain, did I? Interesting. Should have been a weatherman. Could have just guessed. Meteorologist, the only job where you can just randomly guess what the weather's going to be.
Anyone that's listening to this that fishes knows exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, I would like to see the stats, the over-under on how many times a weatherman has gotten a fisherman.
Hi, I'm an attractive blonde woman, and I know a lot about weather.
All right, relax. No, I don't know. It's just... It's a touchy subject for fishermen, which if you're listening to this, then you know exactly what we're talking about.
The way you judge weather for fishing is you take 4 or 5 apps, weather predictions, and you average them out.
Yeah.
And you're never going to be but so heartbroken because you're going to be close.
Yeah.
That's probably not gonna be that
Zero
good.
weather is usually 5 miles an hour. 5 to 10 is usually 25 plus. So
15 plus, don't go.
yeah, just stay home. Read a book. But anyway, our this list we're gonna go down. We'll start from 5 to 1. This is our top 5 favorite, I guess, fish species or scenarios.
Yeah.
We're just kind of doing it in general, but I'll let you go first.
All right. My 5, I don't know if yours are in and out of the state of Virginia or not, but my 5 are all inside the state of Virginia. Number 5, do you want to go down the whole list?
Nah, just do one at a time.
Okay.
We'll just kind of discuss.
Number
them.
5, I said it's not really one species, but kind of like just a thing.
Mm.
Been doing it since I was a little kid. Always really fond memories of it, and something you look forward to. Is just like a day of shad followed by catfishing and all that.
That made my list.
Did it?
Yep.
Yeah. Mine, I don't know, something about it, like nothing overly difficult about it, especially ever since we started doing like the drifting and stuff for the catfish in the kayaks.
Yeah.
Just something about it. Go out there, and I mean, I've been fishing for shad since I could stand up.
Yeah.
So
Shad fishing was my number 4. So it's just I had a hard time with this list, actually, even though it was my idea to do it. It's like, what really...
If you're from this area, the thing with shad, people who don't know, we have migratory species of shad. Some people might be listening from a different area of the country where they're like, who wants to catch a threadfin?
Well, California has like American shad all the time,
Yeah.
or Washington. They use them. They have them so prevalently use them for sturgeon bait up there.
Yeah.
So,
Well, hell, they're legal to keep in Jersey.
yeah, right.
But
So,
anyway, hickory and American shad, they migrate up the rivers in the spring to spawn. Excuse me.
perfect. That sounded great.
Probably did. Sorry about that, folks. The catfish, big stripers, you name it, they all follow them up the river because they're just a migratory bait source. So you go out, you whack on the shad all morning, just catch as many of them as you want, and then keep 4 or 5. I try to always keep the males just to be conservation minded, but keep 4 or 5 male hickory shad for catfish bait, cut them up, and go to town.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, like the reason why it made both of our lists with all the fishing that we've done, is just it's not the Super Bowl because it comes first.
It's the kickoff to the fishing season.
It's like the Daytona 500 of the fishing season. It's a bunch of fish all at once, a bunch of different variety.
Everybody around here loves them because of most. I mean, we don't slow down fishing that much in the winter. Naturally, you fish less, but
the fishing slows for sure.
But like a lot of people around the world put their stuff away when it gets cold, and then you go from 0 to 500 in 1 second. I mean, late March, early April, everybody's starting to get back into the game. And then it's like, bam, shad, get here. You can catch 100 fish a day and just massacre them.
Yeah, anybody, like, if you're in the mid-Atlantic region, well, they run the entire East Coast, but I would say Chesapeake Bay watershed probably gets some of the best fishing for shad in the country. But essentially, these saltwater species run up the river in about February, but they're not biting and they're not in very good numbers. Yeah. And once early to mid-March gets here, those water temperatures raise up to about 50, and 50 is kind of the magic number to trigger these shad to eat.
Yeah. And they're not eating, they're striking out of aggression.
Right. It's just a pure reaction strike. There's so many fish in the water, and I mean, you're talking
literally billions.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's a
it's like a salmon run, essentially.
And we grew up here in Central Virginia. We still live here, and the James River is unique in which it's a tidal river all the way up until our capital city of Richmond, and then it immediately and very drastically shifts
to a rocky non-tidal river,
relatively shallow in comparison. So these fish are swimming for miles and miles from the ocean to the bay to the James, and then up the James 100 miles to the city, and then they get there and they're immediately met with a wall. Yeah. And they bottleneck, and they have to run them 1 or 2 at a time. That massive school of fish can't push all together, and they usually can't push unless there's a ton of flow, like higher water.
A lot of times you're waiting. They're just sitting there swimming in circles, waiting for a spike in the river. So you get some rain in the spring.
Rain, yep.
The river jumps 4 or 5 feet, sometimes freaking 10 feet.
Yeah.
And when the river comes back down, a lot of times those first couple days that it's back fishable, the fishing kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Because that wave of fish pushed up river and you're waiting for another big ball of them to get bottlenecked right up against the rocks.
So it's the abundance of fish, the kind of ease of fishing. Virginia, like...
Not to mention, I mean, they fight like crazy. They fight hard. They jump. I mean, they're literally a tarpon.
Mini tarpon, yep.
Hickory shad is a direct relative to a tarpon. They look identical. They just don't get more than 2 pounds. 2.5 pounds.
So it's the coming out of the winter doldrums. It's the weather getting nicer. It's the trees going into bloom. And then it's millions of fish. You can literally catch them every cast if you really get into them. And then it's bait. So, trying to get bait for catfishing can be kind of a pain in the tail sometimes. So it's easy bait for catfish. The deeper into the spring you get, the more big blue cats have followed that migration upriver. So you get big blue cats, big flatheads. And then, we get pretty substantial striper.
I mean, a 70-pounder was caught in the James. Yep. There's been multiple fish over 65 pounds caught in the James.
73-pounder, I want to say it was like 2012-ish, 2014, something like that. But so there's giant striper that come upriver too. So it's just the river is getting new life breathed into it, and it's everybody's out there. Everybody's firing their boat up for the first time all season. So it's just exciting. And
if I wasn't afraid my camera would get stolen, I would love to set up a camera at the boat ramp because you see some sights.
Oh, yeah. It's
jet skis falling off of trailers.
Pure entertainment the whole time.
30-foot cuddy cabin boats that haven't been started since last year.
Well, remember, we had some guys float down on us at Anchor last year.
Oh, yeah.
It was a boat full of 5-6 people.
Yeah.
It was just
within 5 feet of your boat.
Yeah, and then we were the problem somehow.
How about the wastewater treatment or it was the Porter John dumping company.
Oh yeah, well yeah,
that was years ago.
That's not exactly going to be a highlight.
Not a highlight, but you just talking about sites. So the Porta John are like a septic company.
Honey dipper is the appropriate term.
The honey dipper.
The dookie wagon
was full.
It dumped its contents on the boat ramp.
And then the next day...
It was a week of
Remember
cars.
the Astro van trying to get up? There was an Astro van trying to pull a boat.
It wasn't an Astro van. It was a A-team shaggin' wagon with a 2-wheel drive, very heavy car, very heavy van.
Trying to pull a boat trailer.
Yeah, those things have big block motors in them. They weigh a ton. Trying to back a full fiberglass boat from the 60s down to the water, and they hit that poop trail and just slid. and
then had to try and get back up the hill and slinging it everywhere.
Dude, there was blue smoke. They were slinging shit everywhere. It was terrible. So... there's just, needless to say, it is a very interesting time of year.
Hey, Josh, be careful. That ramp's really slick. Okay.
Yeah. I've fallen in the ramp there almost immediately after Grant told me to be careful. It's just one of those things.
It's a good time.
Yeah. It's a special time of year. Everything's coming to life. People are coming to life. Fish are coming to life. It's, 99% of the time it's difficult.
You got to witness it to understand it, but it's very deserving of being in the top 5.
Yeah, it's difficult to catch fish here a lot of the times. And
what's your number 5?
Okay, I guess we're moving on.
We're moving on.
Yeah. My number 5 is just in general drop shot bass fishing. I don't know.
That's not on my list.
You wouldn't.
I do like fishing and drop shot though.
I don't know what it is. I've got pretty decent at it early on in my fishing career, and it's just something that's ingrained in my brain. It's something about just sitting there working a bait, knowing exactly how it's moving, and then just that little tick you feel on your line. You're like, oh, I got him.
And it is cool because you don't know what you got till you set the hook. Granted, that's every situation, but it seems like every fish hits it the same. Just
it's a little pop.
Yeah. Because it's such a small bait, they don't have to thump it. They just come up to it no aggression, just done.
And it's just, it's not like a moving bait where you feel the fish immediately. Yeah. You have that little split second in between when the fish bites and when you set the hook on it.
Yeah, you give them half a second before you load up.
It's just that little special moment of I have this thing and it doesn't know I have it yet. So it's that. It's being able to sort of pinpoint the areas you want to fish.
Also, I like drop shot just because of the percentage of fish you land. You don't lose many fish on
Not
drop
really.
shot.
Yeah, not really.
Very small bait, small hook, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I showed you that like the more power shotting and power fishing a drop shot with a weedless hook.
Mm-hmm.
If you use the right hook, I mean, yeah, you might be fishing lighter line, lighter leader, but you can still pull on them pretty good with that style.
Yeah.
And those small hooks too, even with big fish, they don't throw them as easy as they throw like a spinnerbait. You know, those small hooks,
There's
you get
less
them
to throw around. Yeah.
You get them pinned. I mean, they don't come off. They got to break you off.
Yeah. So I learned that here in Virginia on some of our Clearwater lakes, and I was able to take it up to Lake Michigan and drop shot some of the like crystal clear Bahama water up there, and it's crazy watching a 5-ish pound smallmouth come up and just inhale your bait. You're literally working it until he eats it. It's just really cool stuff. So that's my number 5, just kind of a general thing, but it's fun.
My number 4, and I don't know, it's probably the most exciting. I don't know. It belongs in the top 5, but I could easily see it being number 1 at times. But either way, I said the cobia in the bay and the big red drum in the bay when they're on bunker balls. Mm-hmm. That's a very late summer thing. Yeah. You start finding the bunker tend to work their way to the south side of the bay, the Menhaden, as you would call them. They're all over the bay, but some of the best action's on the southern side of the bay. And it's wild to see those. When the drum get on a bunker ball, it's just mayhem. I mean, it looks like the world is ending. Yeah. It's just a whitewash until basically all the bunker are gone and the drum eat them all.
So we have thunder.
It is a thunderstorm on January 12th.
Yeah, I don't know when you all are listening.
Interesting. To this, that's very rare for Virginia.
Yeah, it's Virginia's.
I even said when I got here, I was like, "It's January 12th. I'm wearing short sleeves. This is weird."
We're in the land of mild weather here in the Mid-Atlantic. It's but yeah,
La Nina.
Yeah,
but
that's okay.
So the bunker ball thing, it's really cool. You get these huge balls of bunker that are like basically the size of a school bus.
Yeah,
and the drum just demolish them, but the cobia are pretty cool. You might only have 1 or 2 cobia, maybe as many as 5 on a bunker ball, but it's cool because the biggest cobia will literally be inside the bunker, and when they come up and it's like a halo, you'll just, when you're in the tower watching them, you'll see the bunker just part, and then you'll just see this beach whale of a cobia that looks like it ate a beach ball, just floating up, because all he's doing is eating bunker, and then you either throw a bunker at it, or a croaker, or a jig. They're hard to catch when they're on the bunker balls because they're literally surrounded by bunker. Yeah. But every fish you pull off a bunker ball is big.
Yeah.
Like
it's also like you're coming from the aspect of like we don't have a ton of giant fish.
Yeah. Like I mean that's 2 of the largest fish you can target in the state of Virginia.
Yeah. So you're talking literal triple-digit fish. Other than blue cats, we're really not getting triple-digit.
Your most realistic chance at a triple-digit cobia is probably bunker ball fishing.
Yeah, when they're at their fattest. Yeah. So.
They may not necessarily be a true triple-digit fish. Yeah, they might weigh 100 pounds, but it's an 80-pound fish that's got 20 pounds of bunker in his belly.
Yeah, it's very proactive fishing, too. You're out there hunting them as opposed to, like,
you're engaged
anchoring up time. With a chum bag and just waiting on them. That's more catfishing.
I hate chumming.
Yeah.
You could give me a list of 100 options, and chumming for cobia would not be in there.
You're catfishing at that point. But, yeah, well, that's solid number 4. Like I said, my number 4 is shad fishing, so I'll go ahead and skip to my number 3, which is fishing for bowfin. It has all of the good things that I enjoy. You don't have to be super stealthy. You can kind of power fish. You can throw your top waters, your spinner baits. You don't have to get super complicated with.
It's like adrenaline junkie fishing.
Yeah, you're literally.
There's nothing boring about bowfin fishing.
No,
ever.
You're tying 65-pound.
Unless you're like David and you catch them on bait like a loser.
Yeah, David Graham, what an idiot. No, just kidding. No, David's got some insane bowfin.
The thing is, he catches giants.
Yeah, it's not even fair. But bowfin fishing up here is everything. It's all the good parts of fishing. You're taking 65-pound braid. You're tying it directly to a super noisy buzzbait. You don't have to worry about leaders. You don't have to worry about being quiet. You can listen to music, and you're just pounding the pad lines, hunting these things down. And when you find one that's hot, it's not going to miss.
There's nothing you can stop. Like that fish, would eat through a nuclear explosion.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing that will prevent that bowfin from eating.
Yeah.
When he decides it's game time.
It is 1944, and a German U-boat has just launched a torpedo at your bait. It is.
You're done.
It is insane. They lock on, and they're not giving up. So
those fish possess, like, I've told people about it before, and you don't realize it until you see it. Those fish possess an unworldly amount of speed.
Yeah.
For 15 feet.
Yeah.
The amount of time it takes them to go from 0 to death, like killing machine, is less than blink of an eye. Like, those fish are nuts.
It's also funny how, like, effective they are at hitting a bait, tracking and hitting a bait, when you compare that to a snakehead, which is roughly the same shape, roughly the same sort of attitude when it comes to...
I think a lot of that is... I think snakeheads also, a lot of the bites, they attempt to wound a bait rather than a bowfin is like, you're dead.
Yeah.
Like, I am killing you.
Bowfin are hitting things to, like, stun them.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of that probably has to do with the bowfin evolved here. The snakehead evolved, in Asia, where...
Literally thousands of miles away.
They're hitting a completely different type of bait. But, yeah, bowfin... And then the other thing, too, is, like, you're going to a part of Virginia that is...
Not very traveled.
You take a couple turns and you're back in time. It's not like fishing Central Virginia where there's a bunch of people around, or the mountain.
Crazy thing is you can catch them in the city too. They're available to everybody. I mean, you can catch these fish all over the place. They're one of the most adaptive fish ever. I mean, they're literally 200 million years old.
Yeah, I mean, I've caught them in 20 foot of water down by the beach. I've caught them in downtown Richmond in the rapids, and then we catch them in the tidal marshes. So, but yeah, I'd say the tidal marsh. I've caught them on little, like,
smallmouth rivers on poppers.
Yeah, I mean, they're all over the place. They're a very, very cool fish, and I could not recommend targeting them enough. They're
if you don't like bowfin, then we don't like you.
So, yeah, I mean, if we're going there, all right.
No, it's just if you're a sport fisherman, if you enjoy fishing for the reasons you should enjoy fishing, like the actual fun of the hunt, there's no reason why you don't enjoy bowfin.
Yeah. If you're
scratched my expensive bait.
If you're worried about that, don't go near bowfin. They're about $5 a pop.
I made a post like that a couple years ago with one of those real gnarly ones I caught. It was like, if you're a bass fisherman who complains about a bowfin breaking your crankbait or wrecking your spinnerbait, it's like, especially in Virginia, that bass isn't native here.
Yeah.
That bass is in the bowfin's house. The bowfin is not in the bass's house.
Yeah.
Like, you are fishing where bowfin live.
Yeah.
You got to pay to play. You got to pay the tax man in saltwater to the shark.
Yeah.
The bowfin is the shark.
I will gladly spend $5 on a Booyah buzz bait if it equates to catching a bowfin. So, I don't know. That's my number 3. I get a lot of enjoyment of the solitude of hitting those tidal marshes and getting out away from people and just experiencing just a glimpse.
There's something about that contrast too. Like, you're in the most, like, peaceful, quiet, just unpopulated place, and then out of nowhere it's like pandemonium erupts because a bowfin just destroyed something.
Well, it's also that, and, like, if you take the time to really let your mind envelop the situation, it's like there's people living every other place you go in Virginia other than these creeks and these rivers where those pads and, like, this water and this species has been there for millions of years. Yeah. And in those millions of years, nobody built a house right here. Nobody,
You're literally seeing what was there when John Smith discovered everything. Not discovered, sorry.
First off, you're ignoring our indigenous peoples. John Smith.
I apologize.
Well, no, I mean, it's super easy.
When our country was founded, every one of these rivers looked the same.
Save it. There you go. Perfect. Okay. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. It's easy. I mean, well, for instance.
So I'm looking for a new podcast.
And Grant's Camp.
Free agent.
Well, no, I mean, we're joking, but there's literally the Pamunkey and the Mattaponi Indian tribes. I've been bowfin fishing and heard, like, a war chant going on. I don't know. They're still practicing Native American tribes in the tidal sections of Virginia.
I mean, half of the rivers we fish are pretty much all of our rivers. Mattaponi, Pamunkey, in the Potomac named after.
I would say.
Not sure about that.
Quote me on that, but
the Rappahannock.
Yeah.
I mean,
tons
of our rivers in the state are named after the native Indian tribes that inhabited the area.
Right. So super cool. You're fishing for a fish that was here prior to mankind, essentially.
Yeah.
So it's pretty neat stuff. But anyway, your number 4?
Number 3.
Number 3. What is your
number 3 was the bridge reds in the fall.
Yeah. That was potentially.
You do not have a good time.
I don't.
That doesn't deserve to be on your top 5 because I've never heard you complain more than. I'm not having a good time. Hey Josh, how you doing over there? I'm hallucinating.
I have some emotional, I wrestle with it.
Some of Josh's worst days of his life took place at the Big Bridge Tunnel.
Yeah. Well,
We've almost died together there twice.
Yeah,
and probably more than that, but
at least it seems that way. I don't know.
We
the Tidewater
one time
guys
in
probably
particular,
call
we
swims.
went all the way to the island, and we were like, "Why is everybody leaving?" And one dude's like, "Hey, just give you guys a heads up. The weather's about to change. Tide's gonna turn." We're like, "Yeah, we've probably got a little time. We'll be all right." And we're like, "Oh, let's just fish our way back." And if you're 3 miles, fishing your way back is not a quick task. So we were at like the second channel, which is about 2 3/4 miles from the beach, and I'm like, it's getting a little big.
Yeah.
And Josh and I were paddling our way back, and at one time we were 15 feet apart, and in between the waves we could not see each other.
Yeah, it gets
these
a little
were
sketchy.
4 and 5 footers that day.
Yeah. So
It got
essentially, to fish for these reds, you're going up to 3 miles out in a kayak, a plastic boat, and it's one of those situations where we go back to the weatherman deal, the meteorologist. They'll call for one thing, it'll be completely different, and the wind out there.
All that matters out there is wind direction.
Yeah.
I mean, if they miss the wind direction by 20 degrees, like at an angle, you could screw your whole day over.
Yeah, so needless to say, we've had some challenging times out there, and I've since I'm coming around to it, I just still struggle with how much of a pain in the ass it is. I don't know.
It's not an easy thing. It's a drag through the sand.
Yep.
Not anymore because we'll have our Yakattack cart with beach wheels.
Right.
But
Fit that in there.
Yeah. Available in March.
Yeah.
It's usually, it's the drag is miserable. The one good thing about it is it takes 5 minutes to get your stuff together for this. You need like 3 rods.
Yeah.
You need a rod for a jig. I like to fish live bait some, so I take a bait rod and a rod for a live bait rig.
Yeah.
And the live bait has really become one of the reasons why I love it. The jig bite is cool, but really you don't feel them thump the jig. You're jigging a big grub, big paddle tail, whatever, next to the pilings, big bucktail. And a lot of times you're ripping it up, dropping it, ripping it up, dropping it, and then you go to rip it up and it just stops and there's weight there. But that live bait, bite is, you're talking a 50-inch redfish, a 12-inch croaker, bluefish, whatever legal bait fish you catch.
Yeah.
The cool thing is you're out there fishing for croakers, spot, whatever bait fish you can find. You catch it and you're like, that's a bite. That is a guaranteed bite.
Yeah.
You drop it next to the pilings, and I like the efficiency of the live bait because if you drift that live bait next to the piling and you don't get a bite, he's not there.
Right.
And when you're talking braid, a stout rod, and it's the most bone jarring thump you've ever felt in your life.
Slamming it. Yeah, just to clarify, we're talking about taking a plastic boat, a kayak,
3 miles off the beach.
3 miles off the beach potentially, into the Chesapeake Bay.
Essentially the ocean. You're
it might as well be. But you're
2 miles in a straight line from what would be considered the Atlantic Ocean.
You're jigging bridge pilings as you're constantly getting battered up against them, chewing up your boat. There's the potential for hitting them and flipping them.
2 to 3 mile an hour current, up to like 5 mile an hour current on like a really heavy current day.
There's the potential to flip almost all the time if you're not careful. You could hit that bridge in a funny way and then you're toast. We're having some more technical difficulties with our main camera. Oh, look, the GoPro's not working again. Shocker. Let's see.
GoPro, we're accepting sponsorship if you really love the stunning review we're giving you.
I think it just died because we unplugged it. Hit the top button again one more time. Is it recording? Red button isn't coming on yet. Okay, we got Harley messing with it. Are you seeing a screen on the back side? Hit the side button for me. 1 second, folks. The side button inside the case. It's not coming on? Shocker, the GoPro's not working anymore. That's fine. I mean, we have 2 other camera angles. We'll just ride it out with that. Apparently, it's hot. Thanks, GoPro.
We might give it a few minutes and try it again a little bit.
Yeah, you're probably listening to this anyway,
Probably
so you
not.
don't even care. But anyway, as I was saying, there's the potential to flip your kayak if you're not careful because you're getting beat up against.
I mean,
these
in
pilings.
reality, it's a pretty dangerous fishery.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking fishing a golf course pond for bass versus
Out
doing
of
that, it's
all the
incredibly
stuff
dangerous.
we fish for, like regularly, it's
Yeah.
probably the most dangerous thing we do.
You definitely have to be on your toes.
Yeah.
But you're doing all that jigging baits to potentially hook the largest red drum in the entire world. We're talking
A 75-pound red drum is not like not even close to unheard of.
Yeah, you're talking roughly 50-inch fish. I mean, these are huge.
And the other thing, a 50-inch Chesapeake Bay red drum weighs 20 pounds more than a 50-inch Gulf Coast red drum.
Right. So
these fish are massive.
It's combat fishing at its highest level. Yeah. You're fishing in a very tumultuous situation for a giant fish, and it's just an incredible thing to do. Our buddy, I'm going to give him a shout out here. Kevin Whitley, Kayak Kevin,
the OG
on Instagram, or Drum Jesus, or Whitewater Whitley. He's got so many nicknames at this point, but he is the pioneer for fishing these big red drum out of the kayak on the Chesapeake Bay Bridge.
This dude's been doing it for 20 years.
He's our buddy. He's
More
an
than
OG.
that.
He's one of the most hardcore dudes that.
I mean, hell, they pioneered this doing it in the shoals.
Yeah,
the videos he has this whole Chesapeake Bay kayak fishing Chesapeake Bay.
I believe
1 and 2.
It's all on YouTube.
Yeah, they're all on YouTube now. You can look him up, Kayak Kevin Whitley on YouTube.
He's anchoring up a kayak in shoals.
Granted, they don't do this anymore.
Yeah,
This is when they were learning this. You know, in the spring and the fall, these drum congregate around our shoals in the bay, and these guys were anchoring up essentially mere like 10 to 15, sometimes 20 yards away from the shoal.
Yeah.
On an anchor that's on a float, casting a bait into the shoal because the drum like to feed in the shoals. Mm-hmm. And then when you hook them, your goal is to try and fight the fish out of the shoal, and when it gets out of the shoal, then you come off your anchor and fight the fish. But I mean, there's videos of these guys going up 8 and 10 foot tall waves, nearly vertical. And you see, I mean, they're going so steep that stuff is falling out the tank well of the kayak. It's nuts. I mean, the fishing these guys were doing, I mean, before it was cool, I guess you could say, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, him and his crew of guys back then, we're talking probably early to mid 2000s, doing that out of the kayak is probably one of the top 3 most hardcore things I've ever seen. It is, and
the fact that they were filming it. The cameras they were using. Kevin should be paid to fish. Kevin should be the guy that is on television. He is as good, if not better, than 99.9% of all these like YouTube guys.
Yeah, and you'd never know it because he's the coolest dude ever.
He's chill. He doesn't care. I feel like, but he is.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. I love Kevin. He's
a good dude.
Fishing the red drum in the shoals is some of the coolest shit I think I've ever seen.
The fact that we're even talking about all this is because of Kevin. We wouldn't even know about it if it wasn't from his stuff.
So check out Kayak Kevin on Instagram. Follow his stuff. Check out all that fishing that we were talking about. He has a kayak fishing the Chesapeake Bay Volume 1.
We're gonna hopefully get Kevin to do some stuff for the website too, and
might
get him in on one of these or something too.
Yeah, we'll see what he's in for. But check that out if you haven't already. But yeah, so back to me hating it. When I first started doing it in like 2015 or whatever, I was literally driving down to the beach in the middle of the night, not getting any sleep, taking Dramamine because I get seasick, and then throwing a Red Bull on top of that, and then trying to do what we just described, which is incredibly technical and like you got to be on your toes. I'm literally sitting there.
He's taking Dramamine, which makes you drowsy, and then cranking Red Bull.
On no sleep, taking Dramamine. I think it was 5-hour energy at the time. I was hallucinating. I was actively hallucinating on the water trying to do this.
There were times where I witnessed Josh, after he landed a drum, like floating away from the bridge, and he sat in one place with his hands in front of his face like he was trying to retie a knot.
Yeah.
And it was like a 5-minute period where he just didn't move.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just
actively dying.
Fallen asleep with my eyes open. It is just you get your ass kicked the whole time out there. The only thing is there's
it's-
a constellation of a giant fish, which, once again, in Virginia, you only have so many species where you can catch huge fish.
It's realistically your best chance at catching a giant fish in the kayak.
Yeah.
Are those big drum,
Yeah.
spring and
So
fall.
that is a solid number 3.
I mean, that's truly one of the best kayak fisheries in the world, too. And it's one of the most challenging things in the world, too. I mean, you're hooking these drum. We didn't even talk about the fact that you're hooking them in the pilings.
Yeah.
And now have to fight a fish
Yeah.
that is freaking huge, insanely strong.
Literally weaving in through
Yeah,
the
I mean,
pilings.
there are times where you pull this fish through 3 and 4 piling sets.
Yeah. There's that. And, like, you hear the adage that a kayak can go places that boats can't. And it's a meme at this point.
Yeah.
It's kind of a joke because, a boat can pretty much go anywhere that you want a kayak to. But
This
truly-
is a true situation where the kayaks have the upper hand. You cannot recreate this fishing with a boat. You can
Yeah.
hook the fish, but
No.
as soon as the fish
Yeah.
goes through the piling, you're done.
Yeah, you can actually chase them through the pilings with the kayak, which is what makes the kayak take precedence in this situation. So
It's one of the most technical big fish styles of fish. I mean, it's just everything about it is difficult, and it makes it that much sweeter when you catch one. So
right. So my number 2 would be flathead catfish in general, and then flathead catfish on artificials. Which,
strangely enough, that didn't make my top 5.
yeah, okay,
It should have, but I had other stuff.
Flathead are. I fish for a lot of stuff. We both fish for a lot of stuff, but flatheads are by far my favorite fish species. I cut my teeth on them in high school. That's where I learned how to fight and land big fish, was on the flatheads and the flathead population we have here in Richmond. So I love those. I want to try to break the Virginia state record flathead of 68 pounds eventually. Eventually, I'll devote
It's one
the
that
time.
we've kind of honed in on too, like know where the fish is.
Yeah, it's just putting the time in, which is like the majority of fishing. But catching them on artificial baits. So, they get congregated in certain areas in the springtime. It's the cat's sort of out of the bag at this point, it feels like. But there's a lot of guys doing it. But we've been doing it for a couple years. And
Going on 15.
15, I don't know,
It's like it's our 13th year this year doing it.
not on the artificial side.
Mhm.
Okay, well, either way. It's just...
We've been doing it a long time.
It's one of those things that, like, you're used to catching them on live bait or cut bait or whatever, but when you're throwing artificial baits and you're working
It
it
goes
like
with that drum thump. The way they hit that
yeah,
thing.
they nail it. It's just one of those deals. You're working it like you're working a bass jig, and all of a sudden you get slammed by a 30 or 40 pound fish. There's not a lot of scenarios. I'd say
They fight like crazy.
that scenario with that species, Richmond is probably the only place in the entire world where you can do something like that with flatheads.
Yeah.
So it's at least congregated that time of year and that sort of thing. So super fun. That made my number 2 on the list. I don't know. I mean, that's
They're
about
a fun
it.
fight. I mean, with the way they use the current and how like you're catching them waiting and stuff like that, it's a cool fish.
And you can get, if you take the time, you can get really cool photos because you're literally waist deep with these fish. The majority of the places people catch flatheads is muddy
And
and
they
woody.
get really cool looking that time of year. They get all them yellow spots all over them and
yeah.
stuff.
Well, they're prepping for the spawn. They're getting really fat.
Yeah.
They're eating heavily. They get that camo, like that digital camo modeled color look,
Yeah.
and then you're catching them in shallow, clear
It's like the
water.
only
I mean,
time of year that they look genuinely healthy because
Yeah.
a lot of times when you catch them in the summertime, they're skinny. They're like
they get beat up.
emaciated.
Yeah, they get beat up. There's not a lot of there's not the same amount of food upriver as there's downriver for like the blue cats. So when you catch them up in the rocks, they get beat up. Summertime's hard on them. Winter gets or the summer, the weather gets really hot. The water gets really hot. There's a bunch of people noodling them and stuff. They go through it all the rest of the year, but that time of year, they're coming out of the winter. The water's warming
And
up. They're clean.
during shad season, so they got all that food.
Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. So that was my number 2. I don't know if there's not much else you can say about it. It's big catfish on casting gear. It's pretty fun.
Yeah. My number 2 was the grass line snakehead bite, and that also kind of goes in with bowfin as well.
Yeah.
Late summer, our most of these creeks we fish for snakehead on, they get a really, really thick, hard grass line on them. So at the very peak of the high tide in the summertime, you might only have 6 inches of water above the grass, where at 2 hours after high tide all the way through the falling tide, you've got almost vertical grass line right next to the channel. And one of my favorite ways to fish for them is fish a moving bait, either just under the surface or a top water right next to the grass line. And the funny thing is, if your bait's more than 2 feet off the grass, they won't bite it. They won't come out. But if it's right on the grass, you'll see these fish come out of the grass. And it's really visual because that time of year, the grass is peaked, so the water's the clearest it's going to get. Mm-hmm. And even though the water's pretty much the hottest it's going to get all year, the fish just... those are the days you can go out there and catch 30.
Yeah.
Like if the grass line is right, if the tide's right, if it's not too windy, they just stack up on those grass lines, and you can get into a 200-yard bank and just keep going back and forth in lines and just massacre them.
Yeah.
And it's a really good time to catch a giant.
Yeah. Yeah. Snakehead didn't make my list just because bowfin did. I treat him the same. But yeah, it's the same deal. You're fishing for these fish in tidal rivers around pads. I mean, it's super fun.
Yeah. The grass line stuff, it's just one of my favorite ways to do it. That throwing like a jerk changer on the fly rod and watching that fly dart back and forth right next to the grass, and then you just see a head come out of the grass and just T-bone it. I mean, it's my top two are both like super visual things. Yeah. So like I like sight fishing. And while you may not be strictly casting at a fish that you see, when you get to see a bite like that, and it's the most vicious bite you get from those fish all year long.
Well, it's that, and given the way our snakehead population is now, you're literally, any cast could be the new world record. Yeah. I mean, that fish is out there. It's just a matter of if you're going to be ready for him when he shows up. But yeah, that's a super solid number 2. I kicked the can around on that one of whether or
that's
not
the bite I wait for all year, because like a lot of people struggle in August.
Yeah.
And they're all, man, the snakehead bite, the grass is getting too thick. Grass. I'm like, game time.
If you know, you know, right? Yeah. So I have a couple honorable mentions. I didn't tell you to do this, but I'll mention a couple honorable mentions before I go to my number 1.
I got a couple that I just thought of.
Well, muskie fishing, super awesome, fun thing to do here. I don't do it anywhere near the amount that I should.
It's
for
fun though.
A self-respecting big fish hunter, but muskie fishing, trout fishing was one that really I'm just using generals because I don't really care rainbow, brown, brookie, whatever. But being able to physically see the fish you want to catch, you don't get that a lot.
And then just trout don't live in ugly places. The good old saying.
Right.
Trout fishing always takes you somewhere nice.
Right. You're up in the Blue Ridge.
I'll say that's one of my own
crystal clear water. You mess around, you might catch a world record fall fish. You never know.
Yeah.
But trout fishing just because
if you're lame.
Yeah. If you
the mighty minnow.
If you're one of those self-obsessed people that care about records, what a loser. No. But yeah, the just being able to sort of pick out the individual fish you want to catch is a super special thing. And then crappie fishing, bridges, and structure. That didn't make it because shad fishing was on there. Just being able to catch fish after fish after fish and really hammer fish like that. It's
about a bedding shell crackers.
Yeah, that didn't make my list. I don't know. Panfish are cool, but
shell crackers on a fly rod is wild.
Yeah, that's true. Shellcracker,
especially the old Andy special.
Oh yeah, Shellcracker could have made the list. But my those are just my honorable mentions. I haven't said my number 1 yet. My number 1, fishing for alligator gar. Go figure. You probably couldn't have guessed that one, but just I don't know. Texas is its own animal. It's super cool part of the country. There's big fish down there. It's kind of like the bowfin. It's still pretty wild. You're absolutely miserable. You're getting your ass kicked the whole time, but it's the only thing in the country. It's our premier freshwater mega fish. We have
every continent has one pretty much.
We have sturgeon, and sturgeon are cool, but we have
something about the
alligator gar on the table right here. Just
fish with teeth are cool.
The 7 to 8 foot fish with teeth. And just knowing that you're doing some Jeremy Wade shit and you're getting out there and you're like trying to hunt down these prehistoric giants. I don't know. It just touches me in a special way. And then just roughing it and staying in a little 10 by 10 cabin on the bank. of the river and staying there for a week, not having cell service. Like
miserable fishing. Oh, the baby's just
It's 140 degrees.
yeah. You're eating chicken in a can. You're eating raviolis that you are scooping out with the lid of the can. I don't know. You smell.
It's 140 degrees, and every bank is 9 foot of mud.
You smell like carp. You have mud caked in your leg hairs. You come back with basically silky smooth legs because you rip out all your hair trying to get the mud out. You stay on the river too late at night. The plague shows up, and you get tarred and feathered with what I guess were white flies. You literally get thousands.
Worst thunderstorms in the world.
Worst thunderstorms in the world. I mean, it is hell, but it's all about the mindset you have. And I am a glutton for punishment.
Well, that's why those fish live there too.
Yeah, I mean, you're
big fish live in scary places.
Yeah, like I said, if you want to do that, the guide's the best way to do it. But if you want a one-of-a-kind experience, get out there and get your ass kicked for about a week and then hope you catch a fish. That's, I don't know. It's unique. But that was my number one. So I think anybody that knows me isn't surprised by that. So I'd like to hear your number one.
My number one is, it's pretty far and above them of the rest of them just because it's so incredibly fun.
Right. Do you have any honorable mentions you want to mention before?
Honorable mention would be, I'll tag team with your trout fishing. I like brook trout fishing. You haven't really spent a whole lot of time doing that, but like hiking miles, native brookies specifically. Virginia, fun fact, has more native brook trout by stream mileage than any other state in the entire country.
Interesting.
So
there you go. Hiking miles into a stream that's only as wide as this table in some places, and knowing that there's fish that have been there since the beginning of the Ice Age, and they've evolved. I mean, they're essentially roughly the same species as Arctic char. They're just a species of char that got trapped in this area of the world.
Right.
So they evolved to be 6 to 10 inches long and live in a stream like that. I mean, it's just really cool. There are state fish, so little special place for them.
Right.
Bedding shell crackers on fly rod. It's like redneck fly fishing, but it's
very niche.
Fun.
Very niche.
Dude, when you're using a fiberglass 3-weight, I use the same rod I use for 6-inch brookies, and you hook a 12-inch shell cracker, it's like hand lining a great white.
Yeah,
it is insane.
I hear you.
Folding the rod to the cork.
Right.
The other would be big swim bait bass fishing. Don't do it as much as I should, but something about it's a lot like musky fishing. Just you're fishing for 1 or 2 bites maximum.
Right.
But the fish that bites is the one you want.
Right.
That would be my honorable mentions. Number 1 though is sight casting the belly crawling reds. Pups, like
I could have guessed that.
20 to 30 inch reds. I mean, here in Virginia we have a very iffy fishery for them. The years that it's good, I will challenge anybody. The years we have good years, we have cyclical. The best red fishing on planet Earth when it's good. I mean, there is no comparing it. Our fish are dumb. That's the one thing. You go places like Mosquito Lagoon, they have unbelievable red fishing every year, but the fish are extremely pressured. They're extremely intelligent. They're very hard to catch.
They get an education down.
Yeah. Same with the Gulf Coast reds. There's tons of them. You catch thousands of them, but they get very tough at certain times of the year. Whereas in Virginia, I've talked to dozens of guys who fish for them everywhere. They say Virginia, North Carolina red fishing, when it's at its best, it's the best in the world.
Right.
We catch them just like you do in everywhere else. I mean, 6 inches of water, you're poling a flats boat, sometimes 100 yards to one fish. You see one fish in the back of a creek, and the sun's shining on him. His back looks like a mirror sticking out the water, and you're like, that's him. I want him.
Yeah.
You pull all the way to the back of the creek, and then you blow your shot. And it's like, damn.
Yeah.
But then when it does happen, and you get all the way to the back of the creek, and you're like, okay, you lay the fly down 6-7 feet in front of the fish, couple twitches, and he sees it and just pounces on it and crushes it. That's the coolest thing in the world. Yeah, you're fighting a fish the entire time you're landing the fish. His back never goes underwater.
Yeah.
Like, that is epic.
Well, it's also cool because you're hitting that whole life cycle of that species.
Yeah, so that's the cool thing about Virginia. You literally can, in the summer, you can fish for the babies, and then in the spring and the fall, you're fishing for what they're eventually going to turn into.
Yeah.
You're catching a red that you can hold in one hand and then 2 months later you're catching a red that you could barely hold in your lap.
Yeah.
So
You're catching a fish that, if released properly in a 10 years' time,
will be a giant.
You're getting them out on those bridges like we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean,
cool.
redfish over 40 inches, they're federally protected. So
Yeah.
now they have the potential. There's no one's going to kill them. They
Yeah.
could get to be super giants.
Wonder how that works with the world record for it, too.
As far as I know, I think it's like tarpon. I think you have to apply for like a permit.
Like a tag or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
And it's still within reason. Like, you can't just be like, oh, it's 42
this
inches.
40.
I guess it's not big enough.
Oh,
No,
jeez. Well, guess gotta eat it. No.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I've seen photos of multiple reds caught in Virginia that were over 94 pounds.
That's ridiculous.
Like, 94 is the world record, and these guys are catching them, and you can't kill it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
that one Fineo caught.
It's not coming to mind right now.
He caught one that literally 3 people are holding it.
Yeah.
The thing's tail was like
Yeah.
almost
Was
2.5 feet.
Was that with blacktip?
No, that wasn't when blacktip was here. When blacktip H was here, they found that huge school. They were catching them, a couple miles off the beach in that like 2 mile long school.
Yeah.
But
I remember that photo now that you mention it. Yeah,
that fish was like 6 feet long.
Yeah.
Like massive.
Yeah, it's nuts, man. We get the biggest reds in the world. So
that's
like
the thing. The world record redfish was a 94-pound redfish caught in Hatteras off the beach.
Yeah.
But
off the beach or off the pier?
It was off the beach.
Okay.
But it was caught in November.
Yeah.
Which means that fish was in the Chesapeake Bay
moving its way
and heading to Charleston for the winter.
Yeah. So as opposed to like the Florida Reds or in the Gulf Coast Reds and all that, our fish spend the majority of their time from the Chesapeake Bay to Charleston, South Carolina. So that they're staying that mid-Atlantic.
Yeah, they don't all make it that far south, but a lot of them do. And there's actually reason to believe a lot of our super giant reds, those really big 50-plus inchers, you don't see those fish getting caught in North Carolina like you do in Virginia.
Yeah.
They think a lot of those fish head straight east
and
go out to like warm water offshore and then come back.
Gulf Stream.
Because you go down to North Carolina right now, they're smoking redfish down there at like Harker's.
Yeah.
But you never see 50 inchers.
Yeah.
They're all like 44, 46. You might see a 50.
Yeah.
But you're not seeing 55s like what you see up here.
Right. Yeah, the redfish, red drum species definitely has a bunch of different disciplines. You can fly fish for them, you can jig, you can do all that, and it's just...
I mean, the Chesapeake Bay is such a vital part of that fishery because those fish are coming here to spawn.
Yeah.
They spawn in the fall off the coast, and they're here spending their whole summer eating bunker, eating crabs, and then when it's time in September and October, they migrate out and spawn. So
yeah, definitely a super cool species. That's, I mean, some of my first saltwater fishing is Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel red drum. So
trauma fire.
You're literally jumping off the deep end immediately. So.
Want to see something cool?
Yeah. Want to see me do it again? No. So yeah, that's a solid number one, and it's a pretty cool list. I think some of them were predictable if anybody really knows this, but there's a couple sleepers in there that didn't expect. So. Yeah, all right.
Totally but I thought about the flatheads, and I was like, I couldn't put them above any of those 5.
Yeah, I don't know. I wrestled with a lot of things because I didn't even mention the sturgeon in Idaho, and that's it. I get like nostalgia for like the first time I've been somewhere.
Yeah.
I keep trying to like relive it, and Idaho sturgeon.
That's one of those things like. Have you done it enough to put it in your top 5?
Right. Like the I've done Idaho sturgeon twice.
That was my
now,
other thing. Is like there's a couple things I had a lot of fun doing, but I haven't done it enough to like shark fishing on the beach was one of those things. But like
muskie fishing, some of the most exhilarating stuff you can do.
We spent a lot of time doing that though.
Yeah, not as much as I should have.
Yeah,
I mean I haven't been in a couple of years.
You know, it wasn't even close to making the list. Walleye.
Yeah, walleye.
They weren't even in the top 500.
Yeah, I don't know. Now that I have a boat to fish for walleye, I feel like my opinion on, and now that
the problem with Virginia's walleye fishing is when it is time, it is the worst time of the year.
Yeah, it's miserable. It's cold.
It's cold. It's we've never been when it wasn't windy.
Your guides are freezing up. It's one of those things. But guy on my Facebook feed caught.
I mean, some of the
state record.
Some of the largest walleye on planet Earth are in Virginia.
Yeah, I mean he caught.
People don't realize
he caught a 15 and some change, and our state record is 15 pounds, 15
Wasn't
ounces.
our pre-1985 record like
22 pounds.
22 pounds.
Yeah. So I mean, I've talked to some guys with the state. They've shocked up 16 pounders. They've shocked up a 20. I mean, there's giants out there. It's just, it's like anything else, man. Are you ready when that fish hits? Are you gonna be? Are you
The
gonna
other
have
thing
your
with
stuff
a
together?
20-pound walleye or a 15-pound walleye, that fish isn't eating a 4-inch kayak. That fish is eating a musky bait.
Yeah, you're throwing big stuff. So I mean, the guy I know that caught on a musky bait. I don't know that as fact.
He was trying to.
I would say I've seen some of his stuff, and I've sort of quietly admired him, and he catches a lot of his giant walleye on musky baits. So they're definitely, right now we're in a pre-spawn period for those fish, because towards the end of next month they're going to be, as that water gets up into the mid-40s
to the spawning areas.
Yeah, they're going to be preparing to spawn. So right now they're definitely hard in a pre-spawn stage. So catching those fish on musky baits, especially a 15 and some change.
I think a 15-pound walleye, that fish's head is
giant, man. It's a big one.
That fish could eat like a muskie.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe I'll get lucky one day and run into one of those. But yeah, walleye fishing isn't our favorite thing to do. I'd say white perch fishing isn't our favorite thing to do.
Now
either.
that we found that sub spot, that makes the spot with the subs right there by the boat ramps.
Yeah. Walleye fishing, that place. They make some good sub sandwiches, cheesesteaks.
That slapped.
But yeah. Well, I think it's a pretty solid discussion. We're at an hour and 36 minutes on
right
this
about the same time as
recording. Yeah, so we'll close it out by encouraging you to check out our website, haverodswilltravel.com. Check out the multiple different programs we have on the Have Rods Will Travel podcast network. That would be this one, the Peeling Drag podcast. The podcast I host myself, which is called Species Specific. We just talk about different species and how to catch potential trophy-sized fish in those species. We have our buddy David Graham, who's on the site with us. He runs Boundless Pursuit. It's a regular conversation with interesting people. He interviews big fish anglers, people with interesting stories. It's just a very colorful conversation. I recommend you check that out. And David and I do our own podcast like this called Have Rods Will Travel, based on the website and our potential show that we're working on. So check those out on the Have Rods Will Travel Studios YouTube page. Check it on the website. Listen to this. If you'd rather listen instead of watch, check it out wherever you consume your audio podcasts. So
with our camera issues, we strongly suggest you stick with
stick
with the audio for the first few episodes.
If I've edited this good enough, you'll never notice, other than us constantly talking about it. But this is episode 2. We're going to constantly get better at this. I think we've made a giant jump in our audio quality since episode 1, but we're still clearly working out our camera issues. We have a Canon, we have a Sony that is on Grant, and we have a GoPro. And guess which one is the weak point? Yeah. So
we're still alive.
Yeah. Hopefully we get that figured out soon. But thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, address them to the haverods_will_travel Instagram on any potential Instagram posts pertaining to the Peeling Drive podcast.
You could message us on social media as well.
Yep. Or on our socials if you see us. Or you can email haverods@gmail.com. Just put the subject in the title. We'll give you a little shout out, drop your socials, all that good stuff. But ask us questions, give us something to talk about. So, got anything else for us?
I'm good.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Stay classy, San Diego.
Have a good one.